Right. Assalamualaikum and good morning to both of my respective panelists. I'm Syairah, Amalin, binti Fakrudin. Today, I would like to present on my research with the title of Legal Protections of E-Consumers in Malaysia. First, I'll proceed to the abstract. All right, so here I have my abstract. As referred to the slides, my aims of study is to examine the existing Malaysian laws that offer protections to e-consumers, to analyze the adequacy of these laws in offering protections to e-consumers, and lastly, to study the awareness of e-consumers on their legal protection. So as we know that in this 21st century, online shopping has become a new norm since it is very easy to shop for any goods on the internet, in which it has raised the issues of the legal protections of consumers in Malaysia, which this study will analyze whether Malaysians law actually offer protections to e-consumers, the adequacy of laws, and as well as the awareness of e-consumers on their protections. So the summary of the methodology included in this study is sampling procedure, primary and secondary data collection processes, and data analysis procedures. So as stated in the slides, there are three research questions, which are which laws in Malaysia offer protections to e-consumers? How adequate are those laws in offering the protections to its e-consumers? And what is the awareness level of e-consumers in Malaysia on their legal protections? So for the findings, so here I have for the findings. So for the findings, based on the analysis made supported with the survey conducted with a total of samples of 100 by using Google Form, the findings of this research has indicate that the existing law in Malaysia now may not be able to protect e-consumers, and the existing law is not adequate, and the e-consumers are also unaware of their right, which may be conclude that this shows that Malaysia does not have a solid and adequate laws in protecting e-consumers in Malaysia. So as for the recommendations, Malaysia needs to make a new legislation specifically to protect e-consumers in Malaysia, namely E-Consumers Act. For the next slide. So here I have on the introductions. So for introductions of my research into Malaysia, the research on the protections of consumers is in the development stage, in which few research focus on the topic, which makes the understandings of the matters still in the early stage. Especially on the existing Malaysian law that would offer protections to e-consumers. So due to this matter, my aim of conducting this research would be analyze the protections offered for e-consumers and their awareness on it. So for the next slide. All right, so here I have the literature review for e-consumers. So firstly, here we have in this slide various definitions of e-consumers from different sources. However, it can be concluded that e-consumers is a people that actually buy anything virtually online. The next slide. So we have here is a case law. So basically, in this case, as referred to the slide, E&M Beauty Wellness in Berhad as the plaintiff in this case try to control their product get into Shopee platform because the product may not be original from the HQ since it's sold with the cheaper price than offered by HQ, which may give a negative effect to the consumers, which the company may also face where the consumers may claim that the company has kept them even though the company itself never used the platform Shopee Malaysia to actually promote their product. And due to that, in order to protect both consumers and existing customers, the plaintiff would want their product to be banned from Shopee Malaysia. So in the next slide. All right, so here I have in the protections on e-consumers from courier service company, specifically from GNP and Puslaju. So as we know that courier service company would actually really closely to e-consumers as the goods they bought from the internet is actually processed by this courier service in order to actually reach them, where there are many cases reported that the goods received are actually damaged. And there is even cases where a consumer's parcel has actually lost. And due to that, in order to claim for the loss and damage of the parcel, here I provide the terms and conditions to claims for both GNT and Puslaju. So for both of the courier service, the claim can be made by the sender with the proof and the documentations of a loss and damage, and the claim is actually made based on the weight of the parcel, which the value of the items, or RM100 or RM200, whichever that is lower. However, GNT has actually made a special claim for international shipping, which the claim would be RM 400 or the value of the item, whichever that is lower. Then for the insurance offered by GNT, the sender needs to pay 1% of the goods value, which needs to be supported with the evidences like receipts. So as example, the goods valued at RM100, the insurance price would be RM1. So by paying the insurance, it would actually offer the whole price of the goods if the item was actually damaged or lost. So while post laju, the price list has been listed in the slide, which start from RM 1 ringgit and 50 cents until less than 15 ringgit. Moreover, so here I have the existing law that actually offers protection to e-consumers from articles or directly from the legislation itself. So the first and foremost for the consumers' protections, it can be calculated that after the amendment has been made, it has recognized the use of electronic commerce transactions. So it would also contain the provisions concerning on the false and the misleading assertions about the quality and quantity of the goods. Furthermore, Consumers Protection Regulation 2012 is said to be most essentials and can be considered as a major legislation when it comes to e-consumer transaction. So under Section 5 of this legislation, it's actually defined commercial transactions. So as accordance to the definitions, it shows that this act actually recognizes illegal electronic messages involving the transactions of e-commerce. So, however, there is no provisions for conducting electronic transaction in the safe and secure environment, which is critical for a consumer's protections. For Sales and Goods Act, or SOGA, is a legislation that governs contracts of sales of goods in Malaysia. So SOGA is actually presumed to be applied to the to online transactions, since there is no provision covers on the e-commerce platform, as there is no written or implied rules prohibits the selling of the goods over the internet as stated in the legislations. It is presumed that it may also apply to e-consumers. So in this act, section 15 actually mentioned the items sold must be identical to those described in the descriptions, which these protections as online transactions would have higher risk compared to buying in a physical store. Then section 62 of SOGA shows that unfairness to e-consumers, and it's actually allow the exclusions of implied conditions in a contract of sales of goods by express provisions. So in the next slide. All right, so here I have for the Contracts Acts. So for the Contract Act 1950, it's actually extend to all modes of communication, including the electronic communications. So however, even though it actually has the all modes of communications in the contract, however, it is out of date, has yet to be changed and actually update to be meet the needs of today's business enterprise. So due to the absence of any provisions on the legal effect on the online transaction, this act may not resolve the issues of validity and enforceability of electronic contracts in the current state of development. So in 2010, the Direct Sales and Anti-Pyramid Scheme Act, so actually was revised and also include the e-commerce in the definitions of mail order sales. So Section 19A of this act has actually stated that the goods that is illegal should not be sold online. So in the next slide. All right, so here I have the platform that offers protections to e-consumers in Malaysia. Firstly is on Tribunal for Consumer Claims Malaysia, which actually has been established as accordance to Sections 85 of the Consumers Protections Act 1999 by Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs. So with the objective to actually provide a platform for consumers to seek for remedy in the civil court for any goods and services acquired to a convenient, quick, and low cost way. Then we also have a check mule CCID. So Commercial Crime Investigation Department, Royal Malaysia Police has actually come out with this website where the public may actually check any bank account, phone number, and identical card number that actually belongs to anyone. So the result of this search would show whether they are the numbers that has been reported to the police or not. So this website has actually been created in order to check on the record of the scammers. So this website will be super beneficial for the e-consumers as they may check the account number, phone number, or even identify card number of the seller before making any payment or transaction, which would consequently help in reducing the numbers of e-consumers being scammed. So this platform has been publicized to create the awareness. So recently, the government already sending us automatic tags on this platform, in which last week and last 2 week, which mentioned its info lined on the WhatsApp, which actually been operated from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. every day. And not only that, but they also have hotline CCID response center where the individual that has been scammed online may directly contact the number to report it. Then we have e-consumers may also make a report to KPDN Hub. So this platform is under Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumers Affairs. So the e-consumers may actually make complaint in many ways where there are toll-free number stated in the slide. The complaint also can be made in their official website under e-aduan system. Write letters to complaint department in Ministry of Domestic and Trade Consumers Affairs. Claim also can be made through KPDN Hub official WhatsApp, where the complainant may actually have a live chat session and as well as a walk-in to any of the consumers complaint management center, and also in their apps, which is Easy Adu KPD and KK. And lastly, consumers may also launch a report to any dissatisfactions which relate to a communications and multimedia sector. So for e-consumers, problems with the postal and courier services may be complained in this platform. But the platform of MCMC should only be made after the e-consumers has tried conducting these three steps. So the first step is that the consumers that has issues regarding the courier service, they firstly need to contact the service provider for resolutions. And if there is no feedback or no resolutions by the service provider, they may actually follow the second step. So the second step that the consumer should actually take is that they need to make a complaint on the Communication and Multimedia Consumer Forum of Malaysia. For the complaints, if the feedback and the resolution is actually not satisfied, they actually may follow the third step, which is make a complaint under MCMC by calling a toll-free number or email them, or straight away go to the official portal of MCMC to make a report. So lastly, for the literature review, here I have under awareness awareness on legal protections of e-consumers in Malaysia. So as shown in the slide, here is the awareness level based on the articles. Based on the literature review, it can be said that Malaysia's level of awareness on the legal protections of e-consumers in Malaysia is still on a low level based on both of the articles review. So on the other hand, it shows that KPDN Help has actually made an effort to establish awareness club in a school and university to make sure that people would get awareness on their rights. So next slide is on the issues and problems. So as from the literature review made, this may lead to the issues and the problems in regard to the consumers. So firstly is the issues where there are many consumers that being scammed when they are shopping online, especially on social media, as it is not authorized platform to conduct sales and purchase like online shopping platform. And then it also shows that consumers are not aware upon their rights, and the awareness of consumers on their rights offered in Malaysia are absolutely essential. So this shows that many consumers still do not know on what to do if their rights has been violated. Lastly, as per the data in the slide, the number of e-consumers in Malaysia has actually reached 21.9 million in 2020. So according to the STAR in July 2020 in the MCO, consumers actually prefer to shop online rather than going to the physical store. So most likely because they would like to avoid the hassles of the restrictions. So this news shows that Malaysians prefer to experience buying goods online from walking to the store in the pandemic. So this fact indicates that we should provide more legal protections, rate them as it covered most Malaysians. So in the next slide is on the methodology. So methodology from chapter 3. So in this research, I have applied the method of interpretivism research philosophy in my research. So it actually refers to a sort of research approach that is actually used to get in deep insight into the lives of those who actually participate in it. So the method applied in this research are interviews, survey, case studies, observations, and other methods that would actually allow a close sight of the respondent's view on the topic. So in the interpretivism research philosophy, the most preferred method is definitely qualitative method. So by conducting qualitative research, the data obtained can actually be analyzed even if the numbers of the data are considered minor. So by conducting a secondary analysis by using a desktop search, it would allow me to do the analysis based on the existing research articles, newspaper articles, government official website, or postals, government publications, social media, online shopping platforms, and many others in collecting the information for the research. So as mentioned, their method is also semi-structured interview. So this type of interview is the best suit for the research, as it would allow me to spontaneously create the question based on the interviewee's answer to a question before. So for the interview, in choosing the interviewees, most of them are e-consumers that has experience of being scammed before. There are also e-shopaholic or online shopping lover, which makes them suit to my research very well. So the interviewees are Miss Syairah, which is my older sister. Since our name are quite similar, I think that it's better to clarify that way. And the other respondent is Miss Cikgu Nur Afika. So for another method used in this research to collect data is from conducting survey. So survey is one of the ways to get the information from e-consumers directly, in which I use a Google Form platform. So the total of questions for the survey is 18 questions, with 100 respondents respond to the survey. In the next slide, so here I have the analysis and the findings under chapter 4. So for the data analysis, this research will be analyzing the literature review for of the research, findings of the interview, and the survey conducted through Google Form. So it would actually compare the whole result from the three methods conducted for this research. So the method conducted for this research is strangulations method, in which multiple qualitative methods by performing the literature review, survey, and interview. So in this chapter, the research will make a comparisons based on the data collected, literature review, interview, and as well as a survey. So for the first research question, as mentioned in the slide, as referred to slide, those are actually the legal provision involved in the analysis for the research question. So as based on the first survey questions stated in the slide, 62% of the respondents knows that Malaysia actually has existing law to provide protections to e-consumers, while on the other hand, 39 of the respondents, 39% of the respondent has no knowledge that Malaysia actually has existing law in order to protect consumers. However, the second question, the result of respondents upon this question, the result shows that 63% has acknowledge those existing law. However, the results are stated may be due to the majority age of the respondents are 31 years old and above, with 70% of the respondents. Since e-commerce is something that is very new to some of the respondents in that particular age, they may not know the laws on the e-consumers. So furthermore, for the interview conducted with two of the e-consumers, before that, in the interview made with the first respondent, the question asked is whether the respondent knows on any of the existing law in Malaysia which provide them any protections as e-consumers, and the respondents believed that there must be any protections created in any of the existing Malaysian's law, but she may not list any of the existing law specifically or in details. Then the same exact question also being asked to the second respondent, and she also agreed that Malaysia would have law to actually protect the e-consumers. However, the second respondent herself also would not be able to list out any of the provision. So in the next slide, so here we have the experience of the e-consumers. So firstly, as can be seen in the slide, she shared her experience on buying and dealing with e-commerce platform in her personal blog, which she actually shared her experience in getting refund from Shopee after her parcel has lost using a post ledger. So this shows that she, as a consumers, know the proper way to actually get her right as e-consumers. So as your opinion of the article review, it has provided that existing law in which offer the protections to the e-consumers has been mentioned in the previous slides. In the previous slide before, under the legal provision part. So from the second literature review, the authors actually mentioned that Electronic Commerce Act 2006 would be considered as the main legislation to be referred to the e-consumers in the online transaction. So as a finding, as referred to the existing legal provisions that Malaysia have right now, the numbers of the provisions are actually lower to be compared to another country, which shows that our legal protections towards online buyer or e-consumers is still at the unsatisfactory level. So as we know that e-commerce industry has grown widely nowadays, especially due to COVID-19 pandemic, Malaysia should really focus on e-consumers. So as based on my survey conducted with 100 respondents, as based on the survey before, it shows that the knowledge on the existing law in Malaysia is quite low. So this shows that even e-consumers themselves will not know their rights and protections. Moreover, it can prove that many do not know the existence of the provisions or laws actually listed in the survey, which only 63% knows about the existence of those law listed. So from the interview, both of the interviewees also agreed that they must be an existing Malaysian law giving the protection, especially to them as a consumers. But both of them also failed to list out the existing legislations. So in the next slide is on the second research question, as mentioned in the slide. So listed also the legal provision involved in this research question. So as accordance to the survey questions, the first survey questions, 77 of the respondents has answered no, in which they disagree that the existing law right now would not be adequate to protect them as the consumers. So, however, the other 23% of the respondents agreed that the law as it said right now would be enough to in providing the protections to the consumers. So, as a second survey question, majority of the respondents has actually agreed that Malaysia should have a specific law or legislation which especially made for e-consumers in order to give protections to e-consumers, with 97% of the respondents agree on it and only 3% of the respondents that choose to disagree in having the specific legislation for the e-consumers. So for the interview sessions, both of the interview we on the regard of the adequacy of existing law, both of them has actually opined that in order to give and to give the full and proper protection, they actually believe that our existing Malaysian law may not fully cover for the protections upon specifically towards the e-consumers itself, and where she believed that there is still a loophole in the existing Malaysian's law. So in the next slide. So here we have the experience of the consumers as well as and it shows that both of them is actually from Twitter. They are complaining on the poor internet connections on the telco, where both of them has complained on the matter directly to MCMC in solving the problem. So this shows that the platform provided by the government is useful in complaining pertaining this matter. So for the article review, as referred to both as referred to the stated article, the authors also adopt the adequacy of Malaysians existing law on protecting the e-consumers. So most of the legislation amended only for to recognize the e-commerce transaction only, but not focusing on the protections to e-consumers. So as a finding from the interviews, from the literature review as well, it shows that our legislation is actually not adequate enough, and the existing Malaysian law also need to be updated whether it covered the e-consumers transactions. So as example, Malaysia should also have e-consumers protection act, which it would cover all the protection that should be given to the e-consumers and would be easier to be referred as well. So in the next slide, for the third research questions, so here I have on the survey and as well as the interview. So as based on the survey, based on the survey question, which is the three of the survey question, it actually shows the level of awareness that we have right now in Malaysia. So as for the interview, it can be said that both of the respondents actually agreed that they are less exposure on their awareness, where both of them choose unsatisfied level for the level of awareness. in the next slide. Here we have the experience. So the experience of e-consumers, the Shopee user, as stated in the slide, has actually complained on the review section at the review sections of the shop where he is unsatisfied with his purchase. So by giving this comment and giving the rating, the other consumers would refer to the review given, which would give the awareness on the problem that might be that the e-consumers, other e-consumers would actually reconsidering to buy it, or they just need to take the risk. So as a findings, most of the results shows that the respondents from the survey, it shows that the respondents agree that Malaysia is still under the low awareness on the protections of e-consumers, and the highest response of the respondents shows that it is on a neutral level and unsatisfied, as well as the result shows that in the interview, the responsible bodies should actually work together on improving the level of awareness of e-consumers in Malaysia. So as a conclusion, so as for whole, answering the three research questions mentioned before, the existing law that Malaysia currently have would only covered on the recognitions of the online transaction. However, even though Malaysia have existing law, it may not be adequate in offering protections to the e-consumers. Also, as based on my research, the level of awareness among e-consumers on their rights and protection is at neutral and unsatisfactory level. So in the last slide, here I have some recommendations or suggestions that may be performed in offering better legal protections of e-consumers in Malaysia. Firstly, in the existing legislation needs to be amended so that it would be relevant to the current situation, in which should include the proper procedure for the safe online transactions. Then new legislations like e-consumers act that offer the rights and the protections to e-consumers, and as well as the license for online seller, awareness should be made in social media. So all of these recommendations and suggestions hopefully will actually help Malaysia in offering a better legal protections of e-consumers in Malaysia. So I think that's all from me from my presentations of my research. Thank you so much.